the next job we need to do is get the bench cleared a little bit, get the stand back, flip it over, and do exactly the same to the underside, using probably the same wash, to be honest with you. And the beauty of using the same wash is you've got that sort of you've got that continuity of colour. Bring my stand back in. For anyone that's asking, this stand is made by a company called Vertigo. If you can see that there. They do have a website, vertigo.com, I think. And it's a modular type construction of an acrylic based modelling stand, and it's been invaluable for this build. It really has been invaluable. Really supports the aircraft well and prevents it from any significant damage, which is the most important thing when you get this far down into the build. Right, so if we're on the underside, we may as well just have a go. So this is the same colour paint, and you can see now we're on a lighter colour, just that lovely contrast. It's not too dark and stark. If we were using a simple matte black, it would just be horrendous. Because this is a kind of a brown toned colour, then it's a bit softer in its contrast. We could probably get away with putting a little bit more thinner in. Just to help us with the capillary action, because this model is in itself quite flat in its finish, because we have put that matte finish over it to seal in the decals. So we'll put a little bit more thinners in. It should just give us that ability to touch and flow. So we'll just do that, rather as probably painting the top as we did. But even when you thin this down, you still get that pigment sticking together. You don't get that grainy effect that you can do with some cheaper oil paints. And that's why, I know I haven't done it much, but that's why in the past, most of my pan line weathering was with enamel washes. And that's purely for their usability. And the fact that they work so well and they're easy to clean up. They behave very similarly to oils in the fact that they've got a good long working time. But also the same as oils, once they dry, they are dry. They're absolutely welded to the surface of the model there. So you can see with me thinning this that it's definitely not going on as thick. So you're getting that more translucent finish on the actual surface with the pigment settling into the recesses. And yes, I could thin this more if I wanted to. I'm quite happy with the way it's going on. And what I was doing with the upper surfaces, I think you saw in the video, is that I was kind of sectioning the aircraft off. So instead of just bashing at and doing the whole airframe, I did a left wing, let it dry, clean it down, right wing, let it dry, clean it down, tail, so on and so forth. And that way you're controlling the time that this is on the surface of the paint, and you're avoiding it curing up too much that it becomes difficult to remove. And the other thing with a big model like this, when you're doing pan line washes and stuff, is if you break the model up into sections, it's more manageable. And it means you can do so much, and then you can take a break and you don't have to worry about, oh crikey, I've got to clean the whole model off, because you're only doing sections. And if you look at modelers such as Rinaldi, then he works in sections as well. So he does a section at a time and he does it to completion and then moves on to the next section. So it's like that mosaic of weathering. But you start, you get a feel for where you want to be. You get that first section completely finished, locked down. Right, now you know what you're doing, and then you replicate what you did on the first section of the model throughout the rest of the model. And then you get that overall homogeneous finish. And your weathering gets better. But, as I always say, it's your model, so you do what you want to do it and how you want to do it. Don't let anyone dictate to you, you have to do it this way and that way. I would say learn from people. Observe. Have a go. Try things out. And then see what works for you best. And then take those skills and hone them so you get very competent with it. And with competence comes confidence, and with confidence you grow. And that's what it's all about. It's about learning our craft, challenging our skill set, always striving to be better and developing our abilities, and then standing back and reviewing our work with a critical eye. Not so much that you're beating yourself up because you've done this wrong or that wrong, but with a critical eye of, well, that looks okay, however, I could have done this to make it stand out a bit more, or I maybe should have thought of doing this. So you critique your own work. And you can always invite other people to do it for you, but on the understanding that it's constructive and not just criticism for the sake of criticism, because we don't learn anything from criticism, but we do learn from constructive criticism that's done with a bit of compassion and feeling for the person you're criticizing, or you're critiquing, should I say. And there are groups on Facebook where you have the ability to have your models critiqued, and the people doing it, there's some really good modelers that take part in that, and they give their opinion. But as I always say, that's their opinion. It's your model. You do as you please, but always try and challenge yourself to do better. Anyway, enough of my life lessons nonsense. I will continue with the application of this enamel wash to the underside, and I will come back when I have taken it off, same as we have on the top, and we've got the whole underside of the model panel line pin washed, knocked back and ready for weathering with regards to possible oils and mud splatters. We've also got the wheel bay doors to attach, so there's a bit of that work to do as well, but the model is moving forward quite nicely, so we'll see you in a little while, just once I've got all this done and we're ready to think about getting the ancillary parts on, and then maybe doing a little bit of oil weathering as well, just to do some more color modulation. Probably most likely on the top. I'm quite happy how it looks on the bottom, but I think we might do a little bit of oil work on the top just to help lift those colors a little bit. So see you shortly. So we're back, and we've got this right hand wing all nicely pin washed, and I think you can see we've also got that nice filter effect over the underside color, and that's kind of knocked off that starkness, the stark contrast between the highlights, lowlights. But you can see we've got slightly heavier weather in here These panel lines are deeper, so it's obviously near the centre of the aircraft. You're going to get a lot of muck kicked up from the wheels and tyres. You're going to get some oil leaks and some fuel leaks. And as we move out to the wing, then it's not so stark on the panel lines, but we've still got them all nicely highlighted. If you look on this side, then obviously you've got the quite stark faded areas. Well, they've all been nicely muted and knocked back now, so you've got a more subtle effect. Although there are still areas here in these areas where you still got that brighter contrast, so that I quite like it. You can always, with this stuff, it's the same with oils, you can always, just if you're not happy with it, come back in, you know, just get some fresh not turpentine. You can use turpentine for this though. It can be a bit strong, but yeah, come in with your thinners. As long as you remember to finish off going in the rear to the airflow. You need to be careful here because these foot wedge panels were just offering to lift, but you can just come in, wet the area, and then come in with a clean piece of towel, and then just, and each time you do that, you just take a little bit more of it away, and you revert back to that more unfiltered effect. But I quite like the filtered effect, so I'm not actually going to take any more off this airframe. Happy how it's turning out. And I think that's roughly how we're going to end up finishing the underside of this aircraft, because yeah, I want it used, but I don't want it abused. This is a portrait in the Battle of Britain scheme, so the German Air Force would still be in good condition as they're in ascendancy in the campaigns. You know, they've got predominant air superiority over Europe, so the ground crews will have time to maintain these aircrafts. You know, they'll have the supplies, the fuels, you know, the lubricants and all that. They're not going to be struggling like they were towards the end of the war, so these aircraft would be kept in good condition. And that's what we're aiming for here. A nice used but not abused aircraft. So there we go. Right, I will come back once I have finished all this pin washing. It's actually getting late now, so I'm going to bed. It's just coming up midnight. But we'll come back once this is all done, and then we'll look at the oil washers to get them out of the way. And then it'll be just, like I said, some spattering here, mud spattering from the undercarriage. We'll get the exhausts on and get the exhaust streaking done. Get the unmasking done. Then last job will be focusing on the photo etch for the Bombay, and then that's it done. So there we go. So until next time, guys, stay safe, happy modeling, and we'll see you shortly. Welcome back, guys. As you can see, I have completed the panel line weathering on the underside. I have noticed a couple of errors, well, unenforced errors. I thought I'd rescribed some of these center seam joints, but I haven't. Not just a huge problem in the great scheme of things. You can just take a straight blade and just gently lay it in and roll it across the joint. Reinstall that panel line. And that just and you'll notice that because you're scribing it into paint, it will nearly create its own shadow. If you need to reinforce that shadow, come back in with our fine applicator, and I actually use this predominantly on this side just to see if there's any difference, and quite like the way it works. It takes a bit of practice to get used to. You don't want to overload it, but you can basically draw the panel line in. You do need to be careful you don't overload it, otherwise you end up flooding the surface. But it works really, really well, and especially if you want to go back and, you know, reinstate or freshen up a panel line. It's very precise means of application. And you can see the capillary action that comes off. It's fantastic, and it leaves you with reasonably minimum cleanup. If you're just dipping the tip of the nib and you don't overload the nib, then it won't flood the area. But you can see there how that capillary action is working on those panel lines. It's beautiful, and it is just delivering that enamel wash directly to where we want it, instantly highlighting those panel lines. So I'm actually quite happy for this purchase, and I did actually, you can get these on Amazon. I actually bought this one on Temu for about £2.50 or something silly cheap like that, and it came with the nib that's in, which is the nib I prefer, and you get another 3 other nibs of varying strengths. This one here I think might be quite handy for holding a smaller amount. The other 2 I'm not so sure, but this nib itself is perfect for what I'm using it, and I believe the inspiration for this came from Gundam or Gunpla modelers, and they're using this for doing detailed application of panel lining for the various grades of Gunpla. So yeah, give it a try for modeling, and it works really, really well. I don't know how it worked with an oil wash. I haven't used it for an oil wash, but enamel wash definitely. But hopefully you can see that if you can't access oil paints, or you don't feel confident enough to access oil paints, as long as you can get a hold of the good old-fashioned enamel tins and some good quality odorless thinners. As I said, I've used Sansador for the bulk of this work, and that cost me £9.50 probably about 6 years ago, and I've hardly even used half of it. And I bought another one this year, and it cost me, I think the price tag's come off it, I think it cost me about a tenner. So in 6 years it's gone up 50 pence, so it's really, really cheap, to be honest with you. The thing you need to do with the enamel washes is let them dry a little bit more of it, as I have. You can see that just there. I've wiped over it, and I've lifted the bulk of the wash out of the panel line, which is what I didn't want to do. But no problem, when you've got something like this, you can just dip it in, come back in, and bang, straight back in with that. So we've gone over the whole of this aircraft now. We've done both the top and the bottom. I've put a filter over these parts just so they pretty much match the underside color, so they don't look too stark. So obviously I haven't got the Bombay doors done because they're all photo etched. I'm going to do that last, so I'll have to paint them the same way we painted this, with the Mr. Surfacer primer, the Mr. Hobby RLM65, and then the Tamiya XF23 for the highlights. So we can do that, and then same again, we'll seal them with varnish. We'll use this just to put a very fine filter over it so it blends in nicely and matches the whole color here on this airframe. So what's next? What have we got to do? Well, we need to put on the gear bay doors. I need to paint the tail wheel. The strut's painted, but I need to paint the wheel itself. I also need to set this thing on the desk to get the flat spots down, and then with a drop of super glue or something, seal the wheel, like glue the wheels in place so they don't rotate. So that's another job to do. Not overly important, but it's something to think of. I need to do the exhausts. We do the exhaust staining. Exhaust staining is the last job. We've got some guns to put in. So we've got munitions to go, weapons to go in here in the gondola, in the nose. We have some antennas to come out of these windows here. And then on the top side, we've got the upper turret to do, the upper turret blister to do, and we have to do the antenna wire, and there's just a couple of small antennas to go here and here on the engine nacelles. We are pushing ahead really well. The other thing I want to do is a little bit of oil weathering on the upper surfaces, just to help break up the greens a little bit more, but we'll come to that once we get the lower side done first. So I'm going to dig out the parts for the undercarriage wheel well covers, and we're going to get these attached, and then we'll look at flipping this thing over. We can probably unmask some of these glazing pieces. We need to glaze these. That's another job we can do, because I'm done with the weathering here. There's a bit of splatter for the tires, as they're obviously going forward, they're going to be kicking stuff up here, so we'll do a little bit of splattering. We can do that with the enamel wash as well. We'll show you how that's done. But yeah, we need to put the crystal clear in there to get the glazing in. So yeah, it's coming on. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to have a big cleanup. I'm going to get all the parts ready to go. There are some actuators that need to go here and here on the door internals that lock into here. So I'll get them off and painted and ready to go. I'll get the little under the sort of antennas painted that need to go here and here, because we don't have any more to go on this underside. And then we can look at getting the wheel well doors on, flipping it over. Well, wheel well doors, and we'll put the glazing in. Then we can flip it over, concentrate on the upper side with a view of doing these doors last. And that is going to be the last job before we finish this aircraft, and it's not that far away. So be back shortly. Alright, so we're back, and I have got the undercarriage doors attached to the aircraft. A little bit tricky. I did try and film it, but I just couldn't do it without getting my head and my hands in the way, so it really would have been pointless for you guys to try and, well, watch the back of my head whilst I did it. So I laid the camera away to one side and just got on and got them on, so you can see the little activator rod there that links from the undercarriage to the door, and they've got two small attachment points, and I've just super glued it in with some Loctite. And same with the tail wheel door, it just super glues in. But it's nice to know now that we've got this completed. The lid fell off. But what we can do now is we can just set that to one side for just a minute, and we can set this down on its wheels, and it's really starting to take shape, which is good. A little bit of white tack to come off there. That's just what I was using to hold the center fuselage piece in whilst we do all the painting. A little bit of touching up to do in here and there, but on the whole it's okay. Now the reason I've turned it over, because we've got another job to do on the underside, is I need to take out the masking I put in, so we can then glue in these windows, and then that way I can leave it on its wheels whilst the glue cures, and we can focus on how much more weathering we want to do on the upper surfaces, and also think about getting machine guns and stuff ready to go into the two side windows. We've got the upper turret to finish, and a lower gondola machine gun to put in, so there's 4 machine guns to go in, and we've obviously got to get the turning gear into this. There's a little bit of foot wedge dials to go in here, and I can actually take that off now. A very effective mask. Yeah, so we've got that to go in, and then we've also got the glazed blister to go over this piece as well. But we are moving ahead at a really good pace. There's a little bit of tidy up to do here where some of the paint's been rubbed off just on these raised parts. Not much at all, but we're really pushing on. So what I'm going to do is I'll strip the masking out, we'll flip it back over for the last time on the jig, we'll come in with the PVA glue to put in the glaze in, and then we'll put it back on its wheels, and we'll leave it like that overnight while it cures. Then we can come back. I think the first job I'm going to do will be to get the exhaust stubs on, and then we can actually look at if we're going to do much weathering. So we'll do a little bit maybe just to lighten these panels with some oil paints. Not a lot, just enough. And then it's a case of thinking about doing exhaust staining over the wings. Like I said, weapons in the airframe and unmasking. Now the other thing about unmasking is that we had these two windows here masked up, and I've looked at the instructions, looked at reference photos, and it would appear that they're actually painted over anyway, so I'm just going to leave the masking on there, because if you pull it off I'm going to have to paint it over, so it's easy enough to leave that masking tape on, and that'll just stay nicely as it is, but there's a little bit of masking to come off on the rest of the windows. So there we go, that's where we're at the moment. So I'll get this masking tape taken out from the inside, we'll flip it back over and look at putting the windows in, so back in a moment. Right, we're back. Now I've got a mix here that I'm trying for the first time, so I really want this glue to dry clear. So I've got some clear PVA glue. Now this isn't strong enough on its own to span the gap, because I have tried it, it just doesn't have enough elasticity. But what I am doing is mixing it roughly 50-50 with some standard PVA glue. So just mixing it on the top of an old, or the bottom of an old Tamiya pot. Make sure you give it a real good mix. And the aim of this is to hopefully just help the white PVA glue, which usually dries reasonably clear, can be a little cloudy, just to give it that little edge to hopefully dry fully clear. So you can see I've done those 3 windows there. So all that we do is we get a piece on the cocktail stick and run it around until you get that surface tension. You just need the right amount on, it will grip. You just got to run it around until you can get it to catch all 4 sides. Of course, it's doing it on camera, it's not going to work. It does work. It catches all 4 sides and then fills in. There you go. It does it reasonably quickly. Withdraw the toothpick. Be careful you don't get any bubbles in it, because they will distort the overall look. And obviously you'll need to make sure it's not leaving a glossy stain on the inside if it overspills the window. There we go. It just does it quickly. You can work at it, nothing happens, then suddenly ping, it grips, and then that's it. Spans the gap. And it just comes down to practice. Sorry, you're probably not seeing that for the wing. There we go, just about there, and it just spans. And what you can do is you can go back in with the other end of the toothpick and just try and wick some of it out, so you haven't got a really thick glazed pane there, but you always want to gently twist it and come out of the center of the window. And you don't want to do too much that you pop it. So it really is just forming a bubble, basically. If you take too much out, you pop it. You've got to leave enough in that it'll grip. It's all about surface tension. But I'm hoping that this 50-50 mix of ordinary white PVA and clear PVA will mean that this window will end up nice and clear when we do it. And we're obviously having to do this because I didn't have the clear pieces in the kit for this gondola, because it's the H version the kit was, and this is the P version's gondola I've used. So there we go, we've got the glue in 6 windows. When you're satisfied that you've got it well enough, you've got to leave well alone. So let's get this stand out of here. and then we just want to flip it over and let gravity do its thing and let those windows cure up. What we can do is have a little look inside just to see if we can get it seen from the inside. There you go, you can see the windows in there. Don't know if I can zoom that in. There you go. Not too messy inside actually. It should dry nicely. We can go back in and repair anything we need to. In fact, 2 of those windows have popped, so I'm going to fix them up off camera. But you've seen how it happens and how we do it. So that'll be it for tonight. Once they're all cured up and actually hardened, then we can come back in. Oil paints, engine exhausts, weathering for that, the big unmask to see how we've actually fared, and then the last few bits and pieces on, antenna wire, and we're done. And that's a big build over the finish line. So getting there, another couple of parts I think, and then we'll be done. So till next time guys, be safe and happy modeling. Cheers, bye.